Okay, welcome to today's lesson on the second component of where water is found. So this is a continuation from our previous lesson, which ended on glaciers. So today we're just going to be looking at the river system and lakes. Okay, so in your experiences, you may have actually come across large natural rivers and lakes while you were overseas. So in Singapore, doesn't mean that we don't have rivers and lakes. Natural forming ones in Singapore have largely been resurfaced, and actually they are still in existence and they still serve a very important role in terms of draining surface water and ensuring that there's some distribution and decreasing the risk of flooding in Singapore. So what are the biggest rivers that you may have come across unknowingly? And they don't look like rivers, but they do have names that are rivers. Okay, Singapore River is one of the biggest ones that most of you would have heard of, or at least maybe you've driven past it in your parents' vehicle, or you've actually walked past some portion of the Singapore River. Okay, the other one that stretches across a large part of the island is the Kallang River. But that is of course given that if you live in the north, the central belt, okay, then you will have exposure to the Kallang River. These are not the only rivers in Singapore. Jurong River is another one in the west. Okay, so there are many of these rivers, but in terms of visual context, right? It's important that in our mind, when we think of a river, we tend to see the image that comes out is the one that is on the left of this screen here. And this is really not what you see in Singapore, right? So our rivers do look a lot more modified, do look a lot more man-made, but understand that a lot of times these drainage systems that you see, these very large monsoon drains, these are actually in taken in place of our original existing rivers. So we have widened river, we have reinforced the size of the river, so there is no longer any erosion, all in the name of, I guess, development, right? So generally, what we're looking at when you talk about river is a natural stream of water. Okay, so stream, freshwater, ideas like it's moving is very important. Okay, so it's moving, right? Where is it going to? Where is it coming from? So the key terms that I would like to highlight for describing a river are these in point number 4 here. Okay, so this idea here of a source, this is where it begins. Normally, your source of a river should be a higher elevation point. Okay, so a lot of times it comes from a mountain top, it comes from a elevated ridge, a hill. Okay, so these are the areas where you generally have your source of the mountains. Sometimes it comes from an underwater spring as well, then it may not be at high elevation point. But when you talk about source, it just is an indication of where the river begins. Okay, the mouth is the other end of the river. So you think of the river as a linear entity, right? A line. It will start from the source and it will continue to flow downwards. Keyword here, downwards. Okay, river always flow downwards because it doesn't have a system within it to generate power to move upstream. So it's not an active body in that way. It moves downwards using gravity as a pulling force into the end point, which is another body of water. Right? This body of water can be a midsection, it can be a lake in the middle of a river course. And then subsequently it also drains into other rivers. Then that lake itself can become the source of other rivers. Okay, so the mouth of the river is just where the initial river ends and discharges all its water outwards. Okay, so it can be another body of water like a lake, ocean, a reservoir, or the sea. Okay, so you think about the Kallang River. Where does the Kallang River end actually? The Kallang River ends in the Kallang Basin, which is basically an opening, which is also connected to the Marina Barrage area. So the Kallang River technically connects Singapore from the northern parts of Singapore near Thomson all the way down to Marina Barrage. So imagine this: if you were to float a flotation device, a small, maybe an iPad-sized little buoy, right, at Bishan Park itself, which is near the source of the Kallang River, and it continues down the journey with an air tag in it, you can actually track its movement. It provided to get stuck in some of these underground storage drains, which the Kallang River moves into at certain points of its course. Okay, so it will what will it end up in? It will end up in the mouth of the Kallang River, which is the Kallang Basin, and eventually you will potentially see it emerge in the Marina Barrage. Okay, so this idea is the idea of a source to the mouth, right? So what is the power? Once again, the thing that gives the river the ability to move, it will be gravity. Okay, so once again, this is a visual diagram, right? You don't have some of these things on your slides, so it would be good if you could go back to your slide, pause the video, and annotate some of these things. Your idea of the river source tends to be at a higher point, that the tributary, or sometimes you will see words like branches of the river, okay, and then the lower area, is where you will find a river mouth where it discharges into a larger body of water, or another body of water. Right, what is this word meanders here? Meanders refers to when the river itself bends. Okay, these S-shaped turns that it go through are called meanders. Right, it is not within your syllabus, but it's useful to know. As a geography student, you should know certain geographical terms. Meanders is a specific geographical term used to describe the turning of rivers. Right, when will you encounter this? If you choose to do rivers, or you choose to do geography at A levels, you will do river studies. Okay, your current run of syllabus is designed in such a way that you will not deal with rivers until you choose to do geography at A levels. Right. So, what is this body of water? What are some of these body of waters that rivers can discharge into at the mouth? Okay, let's look at one of these key ones, which is a lake. Basically, it's a big hole in the ground, right, that is covered with water. Okay, it can be sealed. Okay, largely lakes, if you track around, they are largely sealed off from the sea or from the oceans itself, but some of these do have discharges. Okay, so not all are sealed. Some are not sealed. This is very important. Keep that in mind. Now, the diagram here shows the Great Lakes in North America. Okay, you can actually see 4 or 5 of them. Right, this is within the textbook itself as well. So I will use an example to show you. This here is a fish, right? This fish, let's say this is Happy. Okay, Happy fish, right? Happy fish resides in Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan is a very, very big lake which is fed by many, many rivers that you cannot see here. So you need to remember that there are many and many of these rivers that meander around and they feed the various lakes here. So is Lake Michigan a sealed off river? Not really. If you look upstream, right, you can see then that Lake Michigan, Happy the fish can actually swim up, and he can enter Lake Huron, right? So Lake Huron is another river. So these are all interconnected and can even reach Lake Superior up there. Okay, similarly, all the marine life can intermingle within these rivers. But other rivers that are cut off, yes, look at Lake Erie. Lake Erie is completely sealed off from the rest. Right? So lakes can be linked to one another, they can exist on their own. And in a Singapore context, what is our nearest entity we have that is comparable to a lake? That's of course our reservoirs. So if you look at Google Maps and you zoom out and you take a look at the central catchment area, you will see 3 very large water bodies, which actually form our 4 reservoirs. No, 5 reservoirs, because Seletar and Macritchie are split into upper and lower regions. They are linked. Okay, some of them are linked, some of them are not linked, but they mimic the Great Lakes system here. So where can you find water? In your rivers as flowing water, in the lakes as pools of stagnant water, surface, easy to harvest, easy to use. And these are fresh waters. Geofacts, 2 stars. So this is important. Please note this. All right. Singapore's longest river is the Kallang River. It's only 10 kilometers long. The Amazon River, the longest river on Earth, is 6,000 over kilometers long. So that is 600, almost 700 times longer than the Kallang River. So use that as perspective. What you have seen of the Kallang River is it's already very massive. So in terms of geographical scale, right, you need to remember whenever you're using Singapore as a case study, Singapore is not exactly a good case study if you're looking at physical geography components. Our items tend to be very, very small. So scale-wise, impact-wise, it's I wouldn't say it's insignificant, but it's really of a much smaller scale. So you always have to keep this in mind. Okay. Other things like lakes, water lakes sometimes. There are saltwater lakes in the world. The most famous one is the Dead Sea, right? But the Caspian Sea is another one in the region. Okay, it's a saltwater lake. It's a sealed off lake, right? It's found inland, and actually the size is so massive, right? It's 371,000 kilometers square. Okay, now that doesn't sound like a massive number, right? It's just 300,000. But I want to remind you, Singapore's land size is 750 kilometers square only, which means that you can put almost 500 Singapores in this lake, right? Let that sink in. This is 490 times the size of Singapore. That is really, really impressive. So when you're looking at lakes, when you're looking at um, lakes, especially as surface water storage systems, they are big, right? They are really, really big. And this is why this idea of having a river and having your lakes as surface water stores, places where humans can harness surface water and make use of surface water, is very important because these are very, very large areas. Okay, so I hope that this clarifies some of the misconceptions that you guys may have in your mind that a river isn't a very big thing, right? In Singapore, we see Singapore River. I can see the opposite end of the other bank. It doesn't take very long for us to walk from one end of the river to the other. Maybe it takes us a couple of hours. So why would this be significant? It's because we're not looking at rivers that size. We're not looking at lakes the size of our reservoirs. We're looking at massive, full-scale geographical structures like this. Right, general river basin. So we come back to maps again. So this can be used to harness to show you where you will find the major river basins. Okay, if you superimpose another layer where you find your major civilizations or major cities of the world, you will realize that a lot of cities tend to also be either coastal. If they're not coastal, they tend to be near rivers because surface water source is greatly important to human life. Right, surface water source is easy, it's harvestable, uh, and is necessary, right? You cannot survive without water, be it for consumption or for agricultural purposes. Common questions, double star again, right? They can ask you to identify maybe the continents of this particular lake or the country which this particular river system is found. So this is a very important map that you should have a clear idea of. You should be able to identify the continents based on this map itself. For example, I should be able to see that this is Africa, this is Australia, etc. Okay, so these are things that you must be able to know and to add value to the map itself. So if you do encounter a map question, we build on from WA1 and WA2, it is still possible that you encounter map questions like this, and what will be required will be for you to add in layers of information to what is already missing on the screen. So let's take a moment and take a look at an AFL checklist. So what you have here is the map of the Mekong River, right, with some details. The length is 4,735 kilometers. They show you the Mekong River and they show you the countries that the Mekong River cuts through, okay, the cities that are in the area of the Mekong River as well, right? So what do you do? Okay, you take a look at the question first. Question is, which of the following statements describes the course of the Mekong River? You can select more than one option. So let's take a look at the first one. First one says the Mekong River passes through countries in Southeast Asia. Okay, what are these countries? Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So let's look up. Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam. Okay, so statement one is correct. Right, the mouth of the Mekong River is in Cambodia. Mouth. Mouth is where it starts. It's the source. This is the mouth. Is it near Cambodia? No, it's near China. So statement two is wrong. Statement three, mouth of the Mekong River is in Vietnam. Vietnam is here, right here. Again, this is not correct. The source of the Mekong River is in China. Yes, this is correct. So when you see a question that requires you to describe, okay, describe the course of this river, what should you put down? You should put down what you see in A, what you see in D. And as a value add, you may want to talk about the mouth of oh, I'm sorry. So this is correct because you're looking at the mouth. Mouth is here, This is source. Right? So you talk about the start, you talk about the course, where it goes through, and you talk about the end. Okay? So this is an example of how you may want to have certain components plugged together and forming an answer for a described question. Okay? So once again, describe. What are you trying to do? You're trying to tell me in words what you see on the stimulus itself. If it's a map like this, you're describing the course. What I would need to know is the course is where it flows from and flows to where it moves along. So telling me where it starts, where it ends, and who are the countries along the way is a good answer for describing the course of the Mekong River. Take a minute, think about what I've just said. So once again, if the question is describe the course of the Mekong River, right, this is what you may want to piece together as a part of your answer. Another AFL checklist. Okay, another type of description question. This one deals with distribution of groundwater stores in Africa. So you take a look at this map here. This is the continent of Africa. And they have actually listed out areas of groundwater source. Overstressed, highly stressed, variably stressed, low stress, and unstressed. Now what is overstressed? Okay, what does this stress level mean? So they give you an asterisk at the bottom and they give you an explanation of what variably stressed means. Okay, it means it's generally being replenished, but you're extracting more. So from that, you can move on and postulate what exactly we're talking at here. What would overstress mean? Means that probably in extraction is way above your replenishment, so that it's not being replenished. Highly stressed means it may still be replenished, but it's at a very much slower rate than consumption. Low stress, better than variably stressed, means consumption is probably low, okay, but you're using some of it. Unstressed, it could just mean that it will probably mean that the replenishment is higher than consumption, and so there's no stress level exerted on water in these areas. Right. So description of distribution of groundwater. What are things that will jump out to you? Where do you find each of these items? Right. So if we look at overstress, and we call overstress areas 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We label them on the map itself. You have 1, 6 locations that are overstressed, 2 locations that are highly stressed, 2 locations that are variably stressed, 1 location that is low stress, and 3 locations that have unstressed water, groundwater groundwater stores. Okay, are they in specific parts of the continent itself? Right. So what are the suitable descriptors for this? So the first one, groundwater stores are mostly classified as variably stressed. Variably stressed is this one, the orange one, right? There are only 2 counts of those compared to overstress. So I think this is wrong, right? This is not most. Most means we have a higher representation of it. Right, groundwater sources in Africa are mostly classified as unstressed. Is that correct? Unstressed, we have 3 counts. Unstressed, 1, 2, 3. Right, 3 counts. Versus overstressed, which we have 6 counts. So this is also wrong. Right, groundwater sources are overstressed are concentrated in central and western region. Where are the overstressed? Okay, overstressed are in this area over here. This is the north and this is the east. So this statement once again is wrong. Right, the final one is correct. The final one gives you a clear understanding of where it is. So describe the distribution of groundwater stores in Africa. If you give me the final component as your answer, you would be correct. Would you be highly accurate if this was a 2-mark or even a 3-mark question? No, you probably just get 1 mark. Okay, 1 mark. Right? Because you only identify one group. Okay, so what will I need to know? I will need to know mostly, is it mostly, which condition is it prevalent? Okay, next, I will need to know location. So where do you find the variability stress ones? In the south, right? In the central and the western part of Africa, it is a mixture. Just look at this area here. This is a mix, right? So you talk about a mixture of what kind of stress conditions. In the north and the east, what kind of stress conditions do you have? So you do not only need to just give me one, like earlier on when we talked about the Mekong River question, right? Giving us a few more so they can piece together a complete view of the groundwater stores in Africa. That is important. Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of rivers and lakes, right? So the next lesson, we'll be moving on to the next component of water. Where are water found?